Sri Lanka is an island off the coast of India that has been ravaged by civil war for more than 2 decades. In 1983, a separatist militant group felt the government was trampling the rights of the Tamil people. And so, a bloody insurgency began. The fighters became known as the Tamil Tigers. They used suicide bombs and recruited women and children as fighters. Their tactics became so vicious, they were branded a terrorist organization by more than 30 countries. Bloody battles raged between the rebels and the government for almost 26 years. The Tamil Tigers were finally defeated by the Sri Lankan army in May of 2009. No one outside of Sri Lanka fully understands the details of what happened during the final months of the war because the Sri Lankan government restricted access to aid agencies and independent journalists. So we've just arrived in Colombo. Things seem to be... In January, I was allowed to enter Sri Lanka as a journalist. My crew and I traveled into the areas hardest hit by the fighting and spoke to those who were caught in the middle. Their suffering was profound, but through their stories, we got a rare glimpse into the power and endurance of the human spirit. The government had agreed that we would be able to travel up to the north and speak with people, go to the camps, see what they're doing for redevelopment, for resettlement. So we're traveling north along the A9 highway that basically splits up the middle of Sri Lanka and goes to the north. There were these little areas and lookout posts all the way along. You started seeing more and more of that as you're driving on, and you knew, like, all right, we're here, we're in it. Before they agreed to let us in, no foreigner could just get in a car and drive. You had to go with the army. So that in and of itself, we were like, okay, well, at least they're allowing us to drive on our own. So we wanted to drive up to Jaffna. Jaffna's on the peninsula, so it's sort of the tip of Sri Lanka. And that's where we got the stories about the civilians caught in the middle of all this. We were literally going into this place knowing that there were about 70,000 people who had come back into Jaffna. And there was this neighborhood filled with people who had all lived through the last few months of the war. We got out of the car, and the whole time I'm thinking, are we going to get anyone's story? Is anyone going to talk to us? What if they don't want to talk to us? And the first thing that we saw was that there was a gentleman, and he had no legs. And so I asked him, what happened? And he started telling this horrific story.
The year was 2006. We went as guests for a wedding. During the wedding feast, some shelling began.
Suddenly, the war had flared up again, as it would do, time in, time and again, and they got stuck. They got caught.
The army was attacking from one side, and the Tamil Tigers were fighting from the other. We were caught in the middle.
And from that point forward, they couldn't go back, and they couldn't go forward. So they had to figure out how to survive in the middle of all this. For 3 years, the family was caught. The worst of it came in 2009, the last few months of the war.
The bombing started at the place where we were staying, and we wanted to move to another place. So we tied all our food to a motorcycle. For the rest of the stuff, my son went to the road to see if we could get a car, and the bomb fell there.
He died right there. And she had this book filled with pictures, and she's going through the book, and the tears come. The son had died a year prior, and they were going to do what is a traditional thing in the Tamil population, and they have what's called a puja, which is basically a prayer service to remember family members who have died. And the entire neighborhood, friends and some of their neighbors, came to help make this meal, to help remember this young man who they had lost. He was their only son. And when that happened to them, obviously complete devastation, but you just kept going. You had to, because otherwise you didn't survive. On the exact same day the son died, the family suffered another horrific blow.
We heard the noise of an explosion. We crouched to the ground. When I turned around, I saw a shell falling near my leg and exploding. One leg was damaged badly. The other leg was only lightly injured.
So he's taken to the hospital.
There were no medicines. Medical supplies came by ship. Until a ship came, they refused to discharge him. 8 days they kept him. In those 8 days, his legs got gangrene, so they had to amputate both legs.
And when you ask them, who do you blame for this? Are you angry? They're just sorry. They're just devastated that this happened to them. For the life after the war, the mother said, look, we were given a bit of money, and we were given some rations, some food, but beyond that, we've got to figure out what to do.
The only thing I can think of is to put up a shop that my husband can manage. I'll go to the market and bring merchandise, and my husband can sit in the store and manage it. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know how else we're going to manage.